Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and welcome back to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We definitely want to welcome you back to another episode. This is actually 281 of the Snob OS Show. So, as per usual, we definitely want to thank all those people who've been rocking with us for this long. We want to send a special shout out to those who are supporting us financially, keeping the lights on, showing us some love, making sure that we are actually enjoying the show and it's not just a labor of love. We actually get some benefits from it. So as a benefit to those who are actually supporting the show financially, you get the show early, you get to listen to the show live, and you get access to our special community on Discord. So we definitely want to thank all of our snobists, as we lovingly call them. So definitely want to say thank you to them. But as per usual, we're going to get right into the show. And we always start the show with a lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. Now, I don't know if you heard about this, kind of flew under the radar, but I want to say last week,
hmm
Apple did a I'd say 100 people, as when you consider how large Apple is, uh, approximately 100 people Apple laid off last week, which sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of Apple, it doesn't seem like a lot, but you can't tell that to those 100 people who got
To
laid
those 100
off.
people. Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to make light of their current situation. The layoffs included some engineering roles, and the biggest cuts were made to the team responsible for the Apple Books app and the Apple Bookstore. There were also layoffs in other service teams, including the one that runs Apple News. So all of the the educational stuff, Apple News, Apple Books, and the
Books.
bookstore.
Yeah.
Apple was like, we don't need them. Get them out of here.
Let's keep you dumb.
Right. So, what do you think about this? Is this Apple following the trend of people laying off? Is Apple like really couldn't do anything except lay these people off? Or what do you think Apple what's the mindset behind this layoff, this small layoff?
So this definitely flew on the radar. I think it was purposely timed for around the same time that the Apple announcement was released,
Hmm.
because then everybody was talking about the announcement and what's going to be in it, what's going to come out. So again, this did fly under the radar. Um, I think people are trimming wherever they can. There were some other layoffs from other companies that happened in the last week or two as well. Um, I think they are just trying to really trim where they can. And I want to say, along the lines of this layoff, there was for I think it was the App Store, if I'm remembering correctly. They basically split the way the App Store works, and instead of it falling under one person, there's not another person. So it sounds like they're doing some restructuring with different services over at Apple, and I think it's just indicative, unfortunately, of the times we're in. And as you alluded to before, 100, roles isn't that lot a lot unless you are one of the 100 that are impacted. It's a
Right.
huge deal.
Right.
Um, but it's one of those things where I think we're coming up to the end of the year. I know some people's fiscal years end October 1, and we're coming up on that the last quarter of the year. I think people may be trying to balance their end of the year books
Hmm.
and trying to, make it as um, uh, lucrative as possible for the shareholders, and also keeping in mind that holiday season is coming up, and I think people are trying to slip in the layoffs before the holiday time, because once we get to October, that's a wrap. That's holiday time. You got
Hmm.
Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all those things. So honestly, the last real time without looking like a complete asshole to lay off people is during September. And you counter that with the September surge, which is notoriously a time when a lot of hiring is done in September. So hopefully these folks who were affected, they'll be able to bounce back pretty quickly. But I just think it's the nature of the beast, and people are trimming and cutting wherever they can to try and make their shareholders happy and make their books look a little bit nicer for the end of the year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, layoffs is the name of the game. in corporate, especially in tech, especially over the past couple of years. You know, you can
Yeah.
mention the COVID, they went up hiring crazy, and then COVID came back, they kind of trimming things and back to hybrid and remote and back into the office, you know. So unfortunately, that's the name of the game. I don't feel like Apple was like, I don't feel like Apple is like, all right, we got to balance these books. We got to balance these books. Where can we find 100 people? You know, I want to believe that Apple's seriously like, yo, we really are not advancing in these areas. We're really not progressing. There's really no um, upward mobility as far as new technologies, whatever the case may be. There's really no sense of keeping, not I don't want to say extra weight around, because again, I don't want to make light of the people who fell under this, but at the same time, you know, companies do this all the time. And with
Yeah.
Apple just being laying off 100 people this round, the story that I read, Apple does they did kind of lay some people off when they canceled that whole Apple Car
Apple
thing.
Car. Yeah.
Right, and then they also mentioned the smartwatch display projects, you know, that also goes back to, well, I mean, we canceled the project, so we really can't keep all these people around. We're not doing smartwatch stuff as much as we thought we were gonna do, you know, it's not, and it was only 100 people, right? So that to
Yeah.
me leads me to believe that silver lining, Apple is really trying to shift some things around versus some of
Yeah.
these companies really was like, we need to find $1 billion. Where are we going to find this $1 billion? Because we don't find this $1 billion, shareholders and all these other things. We need to fire some people, right? That's
Yeah,
what.
I found out a couple of weeks ago that my former team, the whole organization
Mm-hmm,
from executive director all the way down,
mm-hmm,
completely wiped out.
and
I
that just
mean,
and that's
hundreds of people, I think it was a total of over 1,000 across the board, but the organization that I worked in, all of it gone. I think maybe 3 people survived, and I think they were already doing other work for other orgs,
right.
already. So,
Yep.
yeah, I would you put it in comparison to some of the other bigger layoffs,
And the way they do
this
things. Yep.
in the way they did it?
Mhm.
Yes.
Not
And
making no
like I said,
excuses for Apple. I'm not
no,
making
not at all,
excuses.
not at all, because there are still these people who are now without jobs, and this market is hella sus.
Mhm,
Um, so it's one of those things where looking at what they did, the groups that were cut. I use Apple Books. I also use Kindle. I also use Libby. There are a lot of apps for reading books. And like I said, I use books, Apple Books, and it hasn't been a lot of change because I mean it's books. It's I don't know how much innovation you can put into that. Books are released, books go on the app. And I could
mhm,
see where,
mhm,
if you have like favorites and, different whatever, but it's really just like, it's an app where you just read books. And I have to say, I bought one of those. I think we talked about it before. We talked about how the TikTok scrolling button thing you put on your finger.
mhm,
I bought one
mhm.
because it works for books, and oh my god, it's the most amazing thing. Like, you don't have to manually swipe the pages. You just click the button, you can go forward, you can go back. It's like, I'm
Okay.
like, oh my god, I've been using it for like the last week, and I'm like, this is great. But I say all that to say is I don't think there is much innovation that they probably saw was beneficial um, in this books app. I'm pretty sure they have other team members. They probably kept a small contingent for like service and maintenance, that type of thing. But I mean, Apple is a huge company. If they need to, move some resources temporarily to do some work for maintenance or, upkeep, they can easily do that and then shift, people back to what they're originally working on. So, um,
All
yeah.
right. All right. Well, enough of that. Let's move into the next story. Major companies are saying no to Apple AI training.
Mm.
Apple created Apple Bot extended tool as an extension to Apple's web crawling bot that specifically lets website owners tell Apple not to use their data for AI training. The story that I read in Wired confirmed that companies like Facebook, Instagram, Craigslist, Tumblr, the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Atlantic, Vox Media, and the USA Today and Wired, the Wired's parent company, Condé Nast, are among many organizations opting to exclude their
Hmm.
data from Apple's AI training. So basically, what Apple is doing is similar to, remember when Apple created that feature or that option to where end users, me and you, can select to ask apps not to track us
Oh, allow app to track or
or
not.
ask
Yeah,
app.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Most
yeah.
people, most people, a resounding amount of people said, "No,
Nope.
I don't want Apple. Not Apple. I
It's
don't want
gotta be
these
a no
apps."
every time. It's
Right.
gotta be no every
I
time.
don't want these apps to track me, right?
Right.
So, the companies were upset, Facebook being one of them, one of the main people speaking out against this.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise you that Facebook is one of the companies that Apple turned around and gave websites the option to say, "Hey, would you mind our AI bot scraping your website in order to train our
Nope.
Apple intelligence?" It makes sense for Facebook and others to say nope. So it's kind of like Apple, almost like um, reaping what you sow.
Yeah.
These companies were looking for a way to get back at Apple, and Apple served them the alley oop, and
It's the get back.
these companies dunked all over them. Right. So basically,
Yeah.
what this means that any sort of future AI advancements that require gathering a large amount of information specifically from the web,
Mhm.
this extended tool, basically companies have to opt in to doing that. And
Yeah.
similar to people opting out of being tracked, these websites are also opting out of letting Apple train their intelligence on their websites. What do you think about this? Is this fair? Is this the name of the game? Because all of these companies are using tools to scrape the internet. So it's like, why are y'all singling out Apple? Or is it, the what is how's the term go? To the goose and the gander. What is that term? What is the name of that
What's good
term?
for the goose is good for the
Yes.
gander.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of petty get back, that now that Apple is they weren't really in the AI game, as some of these other companies where it was more internal. From what we
Mhm,
understand now, they are, taking a forward approach and, kind of opening it up to AI in the, I guess, traditional sense that everybody else has been using AI for the last couple of years. And I get it. I mean, I get it. It'll definitely. I'm sure it'll definitely make the products better. But at the same time, as an end user, we have the option to opt out of some of this,
mhm.
and as companies, they should have that same right too. So I don't really blame them,
Right.
and I get it. It's some pettiness slid in there, but at the same time, if they have their own tools, and especially if Apple is not, if it's not kind of like scratch my back, scratch your back type of situation,
Mhm,
they're not down for it, and I get it. Nobody wants their data to be scraped and trained against,
mhm,
because you can't guarantee what uses is going to be, what consequences or impacts is going to be. And Condé Nast is a huge media company. I mean, they have Vogue and they have, these other huge names. So, and then USA Today. I mean, all of these places that have opted out are huge media type organizations. So I get it. I get it.
I get it as well. I do think it's a little hypocritical because Facebook, Instagram, all these large media outlets are developing ways to try to track you across the internet, which is why the whole GDPR, and now every website you go to, you have to allow cookies. And the reason
Yeah.
why you have to allow or deny cookies is because these companies want to put, it's not a literal cookie. I'm assuming people know that, but
A bookmark.
yes, a bookmark on your,
Breadcrumbs.
right, on your computer so they can
Yeah,
kind of see what you're doing in order
yeah,
to, and the way they'll put it is to provide you a better customer experience
yeah,
is always the tagline that they use. But essentially what they're doing is they're following you around the internet. So to me, it's a little hypocritical for them to turn back around and say, "Hey, hey, hey,
yeah,
we want to track people and follow people and learn from people, but we don't want anybody to track us and learn from us and scrape our information as well. So
It's very hypocritical.
I find that a little bit hypocritical, but at the same time, this is what
You
Apple
get
gets.
it. You get it. Yeah, you
This
get
is
it.
what Apple gets
Yeah,
for, blocking these companies specifically. Well, I'm just saying Facebook specifically, since that's the one that comes to mind.
and they
Is
took out the ads, and they were just doing
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
doing a
right.
lot.
So it makes sense for Facebook to be like, nah, just to be petty, not because of no moral or ethical reason. Because again, if they try to pull that moral and ethical stuff,
High
it's like,
ground,
right, Meta,
bro,
you of all people,
of all people.
right, relax, so this is to me, this is clearly a petty thing, and
Yeah,
nothing more, nothing less.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, moving on to the next story. So we talked last week about the Apple event, and some of the websites leaked the Apple event details, which turned out to be wrong details because
Mhm.
this was 16-year-old or 19-year-old
14.
kid, 14-year-old kid tricked a popular Apple leaker. His name is
Yeah.
Majin Bu, and this guy, the 60-year-old, tricked this Majin Bu guy into believing the information that he was leaking. So then Majin Bu leaked all of this information, and all these tech websites picked up on it. Come to find out,
Mhm.
kid was just bored and just felt like tricking somebody, and he ended up tricking one of the main people, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a little black eye, or whatever you want to call it, on this Majin Bu guy specifically, but in general, like the whole, in my opinion, the whole tech blogging, check journalists,
Rumor,
right? Because
exclusive, yeah.
they're always quick to run with these stories and not really thinking. It's like, is this
What's your
credible?
source?
What's the issue? Is this reliable? Should we do this?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So, but then turn right back around. These tech websites, journalists are still reporting rumor links from this
of
Majin
course.
Blue guy, specifically as it relates to the Apple Watch 10 leak. This guy Majin Buu has put out recently over on Twitter that the Apple Watch 10, which is 10-year anniversary, he put out this leak that the Apple Watch is getting a more square design as it relates to the Apple Watch 10, which is similar in design to the Apple Watch Ultra. So that's the rumor that he put out. But
And honestly, is that a
right,
shocker? What other shape can it be? They're not
true,
gonna do a round. They're already kinda like this curved edge.
right.
So, he has probably a good 75% chance of being correct because, you know, just basic logic.
But
But I
even
digress.
still though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they're just quick to, I don't know if they're hard up for tech news. I don't know if they're harder for clicks. I don't know what it is, but
I
this
think they just
story,
wanna be first. This the whole saying of, who's in the know, who has the scoop. It's kinda like TMZ, they get things first, or it's just that idea. I think it's just like the endorphin rush they get of saying, "See, I know something you don't know, and I get to tell you, and I'm right." I think it's just like that whole clout
yeah, but
type of thing.
even with that, right? I found this story on iMore, and they say
Mhm,
in a post on X, Apple leaker Majin Buu, and they actually admit by saying who has been all over the place when it
mhm,
comes to leak accuracy, dot, 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 dot. So it's like,
mhm.
the information, the track record, as of late, this dude has been hit or miss. And there's
Yeah,
been no 70% right, 30% wrong. It's been like, we don't even know if this is right, but they still post it. So it's just like, come on, man, y'all could do a little bit better.
yeah.
Just a little bit better.
But they won't.
Yeah, but they won't,
Even
obviously.
even when they get outed as being duped,
Mhm.
tricked, they still keep
Right
coming
back
back.
to the
They're
well.
right back at it, right back
Mhm.
at it.
All right, but that's all I wanted to report on that. Like you said, we don't report on rumors because one, I want to be surprised, and two, you can't trust them because you got people
Can't
like
trust
this.
it.
All right, moving on to the last story in the lowdown. I thought this was pretty interesting. I kind of heard this was true, but then I
Okay.
was looking for stories for this week, and actually, some people actually validated this. And basically, the thought, or the what do you call it though? Not the wives' tale, but the urban legend. The urban
Mhm,
legend was that Apple does not allow their products, iPhones, iPads, Macs, Apple Watch, whatever, that are
mhm,
being displayed in movies.
mhm,
Those products are not used by the quote unquote villains of
mhm.
the movie. So if somebody is setting up a bomb plot or doing something nefarious, whether it be stealing money, whether it be, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Apple's like, you can't do it on an iPhone, even if it
Mhm.
is fictitious, even if it is in a movie, you better
Yeah.
use something else, right?
Mhm.
So somebody pointed out, if you like those drama movies, if you like those suspense movies,
Mhm.
specifically if you like those whodunit movies, like you think of Knives Out, you think of some of them
Mm.
other movies to where they kind of set it up, and the whole throughout the whole movie, we as the viewer is trying to figure out who's the
Who
bad
done it? Yeah.
who's the bad guy, right? So this tip, which
Oh,
people confirmed, is you can pretty much
figure out who the bad
figure
guy
out
is
who's the bad guy based on what kind
on
of
the
phone they
devices.
have, right? So if the good guy is texting back and forth and they have an iPhone, it's a good case to make that that person is not the bad person
Mhm.
versus somebody has an Android or they have a whatever
Mm.
else it is. Like, all right, I need to pay attention to that person because they have an Android, so they
They
are
are
not
gonna
the
be the
one.
bad one.
They are not the terrorist. They are
Yeah.
not the murderer. They are not the bank heist
Yeah.
person. They are not the kidnapper. They're not the
Yeah.
drug trafficker because they have an iPhone or because they're typing on a Mac or
Yeah.
because they're using an iPad. So I just thought that was interesting, right? And
That
actually,
is.
um, let me see this. Let me find this person's name. Knives Out director might be well known for his mystery flicks, but he gave away a big secret in 2020. This guy, what is this? Ryan. I want to say it's Ryan. Ryan Johnson gave fans an insider tip on how to identify a villain in movies and TV shows. He suggested he look at their cell phones.
Mhm.
Movie mysteries, yada yada yada. During a 2020 chat with Vanity Fair, Johnson revealed that Apple is extremely careful about how its products are used in in movies or TV shows. According
Mhm.
to Johnson, the electronics company refuses to allow its devices to be used by villains or during the commission of crimes. Because of these restrictions, Johnson claims fans can easily decipher who the quote bad guy in a mystery or movie or TV show is. They will be the only characters not using an
Use
iPhone,
an iPhone.
which,
Hmm.
makes sense, I guess, simply because they go on to this is so stupid. People are so stupid. It sounds ridiculous, but people are so weird that they
Mhm.
give another case to where you could see why Apple is kind of doing this because they talk about Peloton. There was I haven't watched it, so you'll have to confirm if you've seen this.
Mhm.
The what's the show that everybody loved with the Mr. Big and
Oh,
what
Sex and the
Sex City.
City.
Okay. Sex in the City. The way Mr. Big, which is the main character's longtime off again boyfriend, the
Mhm.
way he dies in the movie or the show
Mhm.
is he
On the
has
show.
heart on the show. He has a
Mhm.
heart failure because
Mhm.
he was exercising too hard on a Peloton. And you
Yep.
can clearly see in the show he's on a Peloton, he's working hard and he passes out or whatever. And then in the story, according to the story, he dies as a result
Yes.
of working on the Peloton.
Mhm.
In December, later that year or shortly there, Peloton stock prices tumbled over 11% after they depicted Mr. Big dying from a heart attack following a strenuous Peloton ride. So the fact that this dude fake died on a TV show prompted real shareholders to sell their shares of Peloton stock. And it's like, that's so dumb and so stupid, but it really happened. So Apple is kind of like, nah, we don't want those problems. How, as stupid as it is, we going to make sure only the good guys use iPhones.
I find it interesting that, that's one of the reasons why the shares tanked. Um,
Well, of course, that's not the only reason. The
yeah,
main
yeah.
reason was
It's the yeah.
everybody was
It
at home. And then when
yeah.
everything opened back up, everybody was not at home, so they wasn't
Ev
exercising.
They don't need him that much. She's like, "Whatever." So, yeah, and it's very interesting that the reason he got killed off the show is because he had, like, some sex allegations or stuff against him, so they had to go ahead and kill him
Oh,
off real quick.
so that was the real reason they killed him off the show.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't watched the show, so I couldn't tell you.
yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember watching, and it wasn't the original Sex and the City. It's called And Just Like That, because that's kind
Okay.
of one of the key phrases in the show. So it's
This
basically kind of the reboot
I got
of
you.
Sex and the City after the original series and after the movies, and they
Mhm.
came back with And Just Like That.
Which, side note, I'm going to need, Hollywood to come up with some
Stop remaking
original.
stuff.
Yeah, it's like, "Come on, man, this is getting tiring,
It's
tiring."
And the
Every
whole nostalgia aspect of it, nobody cares about that anymore. Like, give us some new content. Like, I'm excited about the new Beetlejuice movie that's coming out because I love the original Beetlejuice. So it's
Mhm.
like a sequel. So I'm excited about that one, but, I
But
think
even with that one, though, it's like, if y'all shoulda did the sequel, like, 40 years ago, when did Beetlejuice come out? In the
in the
'80s or the '90s?
80s,
Yeah, come
yeah.
on, man, y'all shoulda been did a number 2, you know? So, yeah,
They
it's just
it's like they've lost their creative mojo, but that's a different story for a different day, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right, so that is going to do it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string, and this is kind of second string, but it also includes Apple. We talked about Apple versus Facebook earlier in the show, and this thing popped up, and I really wanted to get your input on, who is going to or who actually wants to put into the effort to actually protect our children. So basically, what's happening is Meta lobbied for a child safety bill, and the way Meta wanted the child safety bill to go forward, basically the nuts and the bolts of it was Meta was saying Apple specifically
Mhm.
should be responsible for verifying kids' ages when they log on to apps that come out of the App Store. Since Apple has such a white knuckle grip on the App Store and privacy and Apple's privacy and security and all these things, then for a Meta standpoint, it makes sense for Apple to be the company, to be the group to actually age verify some of these people. Because again, you're not supposed to have Facebook until you're like 13 or something like that. But we know good and well kids younger than that have it. Meta has been responsible for, you know, not sex trafficking, but, women, so we talk about women and kids and girls, their images, self-image
Yeah,
and all that stuff. And,
yeah.
so Meta's like, all right, well, Apple's the one that cares all about safety and security, then let them do the age verifying. Apple jumped in there, was like, no, 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 no. It
That ain't
should,
on
it should,
us, my dog.
it shouldn't be our responsibility. He said that this um Apple like went to their own lobbyists. So Meta had their lobbyists talking in the ear of the politicians to push this
Mhm.
thing through. Apple fires back, get their own lobbyists responding via text messages. And while the bill went through, they kind of backed off on naming Apple specifically as some of the companies or one of the companies that needs to do a better job at age verifying. And Apple, of course, uh, through their lobbyists, said no, it should be the app's responsibility because the people are actually logging into the app, even though they're using our app store to download the app. They're actually logging in, creating an account with these specific apps. In this case, Facebook. So it's Facebook's responsibility to do age verifying and all that stuff. So it
Mhm.
sounds like both of these companies don't want the responsibility of protecting our children. So just wanted to get your input. I'm like, should it be at the system level or should it be at the actual app level? Should these companies quit trying to be so at odds in each other and come together and come up with some sort of, you know, standard or come to an agreement on how they're going to do this? Or what's your take?
So it's interesting because they kind of name drop Apple, but this would go for Google as well, right? So
Hmm.
whoever else has an app store where you get apps, this
Hmm.
wouldn't just be an Apple thing. This would be a Google Play Store thing as well. The other thing is different apps have different ages of consent.
Right.
So that would put the onus on Apple to basically customize it for each app based on their age of consent for using their products. So it
Mhm.
sounds like to me, one, why is Facebook in this? If you know you have an age of consent on your app, why are you trying to tell somebody else? you know,
Mhm.
what to do in their app store when all the whole time it's just like, app developers should have autonomy. They shouldn't have to pay Apple this extra 30%, and
Mhm.
the app store is a monopoly. It has too much control, but at the same time you're trying to give them even more responsibility and control when it comes to age restrictions. I agree with Apple. I mean, I don't think it's that huge of a shock, but millions of apps go through both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.
Mhm.
So the amount of effort that they are now trying to offload from their own responsibility for developers to do the work in their app, they're now trying to put that onus on other companies rather than doing it themselves, which they have been doing allegedly
Mhm.
um, for their own app. So, no, I agree. This should be an app specific, an app level um, requirement and not a system level requirement. Because, again, for each of the apps that come through the App Store, to have to add in the additional logic or work to do this, and then that takes some of the responsibility if something does happen off of the company whose app it actually is, and
Mhm.
putting it on someone else. So it sounds like it's a way, one, they're trying to kind of thwart the competition by making them do more work, and two, they're trying to take the liability off of themselves. So if
Yeah.
something does happen, they say it wasn't us. We
Yeah.
Apple was supposed to check the age, and
Mhm.
because someone got trafficked, or someone's image got used or misused or whatever, it's not our fault even though it's on our platform. It's those guys over there because they should have done it. Nah, we
Yeah,
bro.
and I see it both ways because, Apple does quote unquote care about privacy and security. And Apple has promoted itself as we're better than everybody else at safety and security, because we do all these things and we lock down this and we shut down that and we, prohibit this and we verify that. Right. So I can see Facebook is like, all right, well, then since you are the champions of privacy and security, then go ahead and handle that as it relates to child safety and all these things. Right. So I
Yeah.
can see that part, but also I can see the other side. Meta is terrible at protecting anybody and anything anywhere. So y'all need to catch up. So it's
Right.
y'all responsibility to implement these, age verifications and these child safety protections because
Yeah.
y'all are the ones that are currently failing the kids.
Yeah.
So quit trying to pass the blame or the
Pass the
responsibility
buck. Yeah.
on somebody else, and y'all need to catch up.
You do the work.
Right, what everybody's doing, and once you catch up, then we can kinda share the responsibility, but
Yeah.
it makes no sense for y'all to try to pass the buck when y'all not doing anything at all. You refuse in a lot of
At all.
cases, refuse to do anything as simple as hire more content moderators. They won't
Yeah.
even do any of that,
Yeah.
and so it's like, y'all not doing nothing. Y'all need to do something, and then once y'all catch up, then we can share the responsibility, but y'all need to catch up first. So I can see
Yeah.
both sides, but at the same time, in the end, nobody wants to do anything, which is not good for the people who need to be protected the most. So
Yeah.
whatever
And
they do,
yeah,
they need to figure it out.
yeah, and Apple is leading in the domain that they're in. They never proclaimed to be, the end all be all of everything. They are leading and, the best at this, at what's in their domain and what they're doing. They don't have any I guess age restrictions, or the age restrictions that they do have is built in where parents can put on those parental controls of what a kid can download, what they can't download, and they can put those kind of guardrails on. So they're protecting the kids in their domain, on their apps in their ecosystem, but you're trying to get into it. So in order to get in, you need to make sure you're doing, your part as well. So Yeah, it just sounds like Apple don't not Apple, Facebook don't want to do the work, and it's easier to try and get somebody force somebody else to do it. It takes the financial burden off them, and it takes the liability off of them as well to say somebody else do it, not us.
All right. All right, so that's going to do it for second string. We're going to move into for the culture, and I'm pretty sure you've saw all of these social media
These
posts
idiots.
about the Chase Bank ATM money glitch. For those who don't know, over the past weekend, I want to say
Hmm.
there were a lot of Facebook, a lot of
TikTok.
TikToks and Instagram reels and Instagram stories to where people are exploiting a glitch in this ATM system. Basically, what happens is they will go up to an ATM, specifically with ATM. It's not a mobile app. It's not a go into the actual bank. It's go to the ATM and you write out a fake check, and basically a check that's written out to you in your name and has your account information on it. You deposit the check that's apparently somebody wrote to you. You
Hmm.
deposit the check in the ATM. The ATM deposits the money into your account, and then you immediately either a withdraw it out, or you transfer it to another bank, and then you're supposed to, according to the stories that I've seen, you're supposed to then close your Chase account. And people were doing this to the tune of 2 to 10 to 30 to
I thought
fifty
somebody do
thousand,
40.
right? 40, $50,000 are doing this trick. And of
Idiot.
course,
And
I'm
they're recording it.
and you see the lines and lines and lines of people lined up at these ATM banks to try this trick and get this quote unquote free money. Well, fast forward to Chase catching on. Um, and according to the story that I read, while Chase didn't specifically say what happened and what they're doing to fix it, basically said, AKA, what's the lady's name in Scandal?
Olivia Pope.
Yeah, it's handled, right?
Oh yeah.
They pretty I'm summarizing their no comment
Their
to the
statement.
media. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They pretty much said it's handled, and basically how they're handling it is this is check fraud. And
Basically.
according to Chase Bank, these people who are doing this could be fined up to $1 million and jailed for up to 30 years.
These are
And
federal offenses.
right. And they did put out a comment that says, regardless of what you see online, depositing a fraudulent check and withdrawing the funds from your account is fraud,
Mhm.
plain and simple. So not only are these people who did this glitch successfully and quote unquote got their free money, now got to be looking for the feds. Their accounts have been frozen and they have negative balances in their accounts. So even the accounts that they thought that was clean and thought they were safe, Chase has all of that
All of
information.
them.
They have your name, they have your social security number, they have your driver's license, all the information that you needed to open a bank account. They now have all of that information, and now they can come after you if they want to. Which, if I
And
was,
keep you from opening other accounts because it's a banking. They have their own
it's
kind of like
fraud.
credit system
Uh huh.
of tracking of opening and closing accounts. So you're not gonna be
Mm-hmm.
able to open an account anywhere, babe.
So again, I just wanted to put that out there because it was a social media thing and it went viral. People should know better. It's one thing. It's one thing for Chase to accidentally give you $1,000,
Mhm.
right? And you say, "Oh, sucks to be you." You gave
That
it to
was your
me,
bad.
right? I shouldn't be responsible for your mistakes. That's one thing. It's a whole nother thing to actually go and
For you
try
to
to
facilitate.
scam the bank out of some money and think, oh, I was able to scam y'all successfully, so y'all can't come after me, right? Wrong.
Idiots.
Wrong.
These kids are stupid. I
Right.
mean, we are kind of old school where we know how checks work and we know
Hmm.
how the banking system work, and this is outright check fraud.
Hmm.
You writing a check when you know that there isn't money in there to cover the check, that constitutes fraud. And honestly, I'm looking at Chase kind of sideways too, because who's giving out $30,000 from an ATM?
Well, if you do it fast enough, it's all automated, and that's the problem with technology. When technology fails, nobody is sitting and watching technology all day. It's like you
Right.
assume that the system is going to work. Same thing
Yeah.
with the cloud strike.
Yeah.
Is it cloud? Is crowd? I think it's
Crowd
cloud.
strike. It's
Okay,
crowd.
the crowd strike thing. Same thing with this. It's like you expect it to work until it doesn't, and when it
Yeah.
don't, you've got a finite amount of time before it causes a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And this has happened, and I don't know what. Yeah, you're right. Chase needs to do a little bit better or implement some new systems or whatever the case may be. But this news spread so fast that somebody was going to try to get over, and somebody was going to successfully.
And a lot of somebodies did. I saw one video where they recorded, it was like 2 different guys.
Mhm.
They recorded themselves doing the whole process. Then they got the money, and then they're in front of the Chase ATM, like making it rain, just throwing the money up. They're recording themselves sitting outside of the car, and they're high-fiving their Chase cars together while holding like, a whole wad of cash. Just like they're sitting on the car, just like, yeah, look at us. We got
And then they
all this
got
money.
greedy. Um, say maybe a couple months ago, we suspected that somebody had got a hold of my daughter's Roblox account and was
Mhm,
kind of slowly siphoning money, from her
mhm,
account by buying up these Roblox and then doing whatever, right?
mhm.
And just going back through the notes and going back through the transactions, they was doing 99 cents here, $2 here,
Oh,
$3 here,
they were
$4
trying
there.
it to see how much they could get away
And
with.
they was siphoning, 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 siphoning until we caught them, right? But
Mhm.
if we wouldn't have looked,
You wouldn't have
99
known.
cents, a dollar
So they're
99,
small amounts.
that sounds like the amount that my daughter would spend in
Mhm,
Roblox. So we didn't bat an eye until it started to add up and went back and checked, right?
mhm.
Translate that to this, they wasn't even taking $20. $50, $75, $20. They was taking 10, $30,000. It's like, come on, man. You're
Bands.
going to do it. If you're going to be crooked, it's like be smart and crooked. It's like don't any regular bank person can look at your account and see that you were pulling $2 out, $20 out at a time, and then all of a sudden, boom, you go from $20 to $20,000. It's like somebody's gonna flag that, even if it had nothing to do with some chick thing. It's like, come on, man.
If you like now, you don't even have to like before, if you're traveling out of the country, let your bank know I'm going here or there. You don't have to do that anymore because they can see your spending habits. They know if you booked a flight to this place. They know if you buy something at the airport. They can track, if they can see trends and track these things. If you make, minimum wage, hell, even if you make $20 an hour, they can tell when you're normally, getting, your deposits or whatever, or what your spending habits are, what your transaction history is. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get a deposit for $30,000. That's going to raise like a red flag for them to say, okay, this could be legit because, people get money, things happen. But for you to deposit and immediately take it out, that's a signal. That's a red flag. And the thing is, even if you were going to try and get away with this, don't post it on social media of you doing it, of you committing the crime. Don't,
It's that fame. It's like we
it's
are.
the cloud, it's like the
It's
endorphins, like, and it's just
yeah.
like they're honestly, they're just not very smart. I saw this post um on Twitter that said, that pretty much every Gen Z or whatever, they do everything on the computer. I mean, on their phones, and they laugh at millennials and Gen Xers when they make quote unquote big purchases on the computer rather than their phone. They can
Mhm.
do all this stuff on their phone, but the one thing they can't do is type. So the fundamentals, they don't know the fundamentals. They only know like on like the far end of things. They
Mhm.
don't have, to me it seems like, the basic comprehension of you're doing something wrong, and you're doing something wrong,
Mhm.
because if you knew that it wasn't wrong, you wouldn't be out here flaunting it and be like, ooh, look what I did, or look what you can do. You know what's wrong, but you're putting it on social media thinking that nothing can happen to you. Are you stupid or are you dumb?
Well,
I don't get it.
I think some people don't know the stove is hot until they actually
Until they
feel
touch
their
it.
fingers sizzling from touching the stove, right? You can tell them all day long, "Don't touch the stove. Don't touch the
It's hot.
stove. It's hot.
It's gonna hurt.
Hot. It's
Yeah.
gonna hurt. Don't touch it." They say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, whatever, whatever, whatever."
Whatever.
They really don't know until they actually touch the
Till
stove.
the
And
skin is sizzling.
right, right. And with social media, they have seen people doing things and quote unquote getting away with it. So to them, the stove ain't hot. And to add onto that, the people doing the wrong things are getting notoriety. They are being seen. They're getting likes. They're getting subscribers. They're getting followers. They're getting all this engagement.
I hope they get big TikTok checks to cover this because
Right. But again, to them in their mind, it's like the stove isn't hot. And then, our parents, say, all right, you got to learn, hard head makes a soft ass. That's what my father used to say,
yep.
so it's
I can show you better than I can teach you.
right. Right. And some people just have to learn the
The
hard
hard
way,
way.
whether it's
That's never been me.
intelligent.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't need
I
to
learned
suffer.
from other people's mistakes.
I don't want to suffer. Don't make
Yeah.
me suffer.
Some people got to have that story to tell, and maybe it makes them a better person, or maybe whatever the case may be. But some people, it just that no matter how intelligent they are, no matter how dumb they are, or savvy or not savvy, it's like some people just have to learn the hard
The
way. You
hard
just got to
way.
let them. You just got to let them.
And man, all these people. So just think your direct deposits, your automatic drafts, anything like that. You have to go and like cancel all of that. But where can you put it?
Hmm.
Because now you're not going to be able to get an account anywhere. Like
Nope.
what do you do? You've gotten yourself for 15 minutes of fame, your 15
Hmm.
minutes of clout. You've basically ruined your financial history.
Yep.
And a lot of these, it's not just kids. I keep saying Gen Z, but I know it's not just kids. It's other people, it's people of different ages as well, because people think free money. There's no such thing as free money. Um, and a lot of people are doing this, but it's unfortunate for the ones who are younger who have basically put themselves in a position that they're not going to really be able to get out of. If they
No
do,
time soon.
it's going to take a while, and it's not
Hmm.
going to be easy. And now they've just screwed themselves.
Yep. All right. So thank you. That's enough for the culture. We're going to move into the hookup. Speaking of thieves, one of the ways that thieves get around the whole Find My feature, to where you can log into an iPad, log into your Mac, log into a web browser, and basically track your devices, whether it be luggage, air tags, whatever the case may be, or in this case, your phone. If your phone ever gets stolen, you can quickly log into iCloud, and one, if you've got sensitive data on there, you can wipe it so nobody steals your data. And two, you can kind of find your phone and kind of watch it on a map if it changes locations. The iPhone, using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, it pings all the different Apple devices in the area, which are a lot. Between me, myself, if I'm in an airport, I've got my phone, I've got my tablet, I've got my watch, I've got my computer. That's just four things on me. So you
Mhm.
multiply that by all of the people in the airport. If your phone ever gets stolen, as long as it's connected to Wi-Fi, as long as it's connected to Bluetooth, you pretty much can ping it anywhere in the globe, because all these people have all these Apple devices, right?
Right.
Well, one of the ways that these are usurping that is by, when they get your phone, immediately what they do is turn it on airplane mode. When you put your phone in airplane mode, it turns off the cellular service, turns off the Wi-Fi service. It turns off Bluetooth, kinda. You can still kind of use Bluetooth to connect to other things, but as far as
Mhm.
location tracking, you can't do it, right? So
Mhm.
my hookup for the week is, if you are ever traveling or you're anywhere and you're concerned that your phone, or you just want to practice better practices as far as controlling your data, my tip for the week is, this is how you stop thieves from quickly turning on airplane mode. And the way you do it is, you put the ability to turn on and off airplane mode behind biometrics, behind your passcode, behind your Face ID. Because one of the ways they can quickly do it is, whether your phone is locked or not, they can swipe down to the control center. And
Mm.
in the control center, they can turn on airplane mode. When they turn on airplane mode, disconnects your phone from cellular service, Wi-Fi, and then they don't have to worry about being tracked, right? So what you have to do, and my tip for the week is basically what you're doing is you're turning off the ability to access control center without authentication, whether thumbprint or touch
Face
your
ID.
passcode or Face ID, right? So basically, how you do that is you go to settings, you open the settings app on your iPhone, you scroll down and click Face ID and passcode, or Touch ID and passcode if you're using an old iPhone. Enter your passcode or your Face ID when prompted. Scroll down to the Allow Access When Locked section and make sure you toggle off Control Center. So basically, the way it works going forward is the only way to access Control Center is you have to enter your
To
passcode.
unlock the phone.
You have to unlock the phone. Once you unlock the phone, then you can access the control center where you can quickly turn on and off airplane mode. So that is for that. But you have to remember going forward, you can't then turn on airplane mode, for example, if you're on an airplane, right?
Right.
Or you have to remember that as
To
soon
turn
as
it off.
things get up and moving to turn off airplane mode. So if something happens, you can still track your phone. But what
Yeah.
a lot of people do is, they turn on airplane mode and forget, and then
Yeah.
they lose their phone or somebody steals their phone. It's already turned off.
Right.
The thief or whoever don't have to do anything because airplane mode is on right now. So
Right.
if you do this tip, you have to remember to keep airplane mode off at most times, with the exception of when you have to have it turned on. So that is my tip for the week. If you want to be able to track your phone either after it's lost and stolen, you have to turn on Control Center and lock that behind authentication. So where the only way they can access the Control Center to turn on airplane mode is if they have your biometrics. All
Cool.
right, so that is my hookup for the week. Nika, if you don't have anything else, tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me all over the internets at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. For those who know or in the know, Apple is having their quote unquote iPhone event next week, and me and Nika will be on DTNS to kind of go over all the things that Apple announced. So if you would, earlier in the week, if you want to see us, I think it's Tuesday is when
Tuesday the 9th.
Tuesday the 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you tuned into the Apple event shortly thereafter, please go over to the Daily Tech News Show and check out me and Nika as we kind of go over everything we announced. And then following later that week, you can tune into our show.
We'll
But
do a deep dive.
yeah. After that, if you want to find us in between there, please go to the website, go to snoboscast.com to get all the details about what we are doing. But until next week, we are
Before
out.
we go,
One more thing, all right?
one more thing before we go. I did want to say a quick, definitely thoughts and prayers to the folks up in Winder, Georgia, specifically at Appalachia High School. There was a school shooting
Oh, man.
there today where 4 people were killed
Mm,
and dozens were injured. And the perpetrator was a 14-year-old kid.
mm.
So, just, keep, this entire state, honestly, this is the entire country, because what's going on with school shootings and automatic weapons and in our schools, and schools have only been back in session a couple of weeks.
Just
So,
started. Just started.
just started. So to have a 14-year-old to be capable of doing this and having a whole community, um, you know, just ripped apart, and the trauma and the stress that these kids and their families are having to go through. So definitely, I did want to just highlight that, to definitely send our thoughts and prayers to our neighbors to the north.
Uh,
And we've got to do something about gun control in this
yeah,
country.
trying not to be numb to it, but
Yeah,
it's almost like this is a regular occurrence. So,
yeah,
definitely appreciate calling it out because it is easy. I haven't heard anything about it, but it is easy to kind of just hear about this in the news and be like, so it is what it is, and
yeah,
not really, identifying or sitting with the fact that, families have been ruined
yeah.
as a result of this. And like you said, we got to do something about it because those sense of slowing down. There's no signs of stopping.
Mm.
Politicians are not, arguing at odds about what to do about it, to do anything at all. So the best we can do is just keep spreading awareness.
Yeah,
But
and vote.
yep, and if you want to see something, make some changes, you're gonna have to make some changes yourself. You have to reach out to these politicians if you feel a certain way about it. Whichever side of it. I'm assuming nobody's on the side of loss of life.
Children dying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, we're at a standstill right now. So the only thing we can do is, let your politicians know via your power of vote. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. Like I said, until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.